On to something else. You said earlier that certain technologies like LRM and BST weren't allowed to be used for personal gain by members of the Labyrinth group. Yet, if BST did exist, wouldn't everyone line up and ask to use it? I know I would. There are a lot of events in my life I'd change if I could. Once the cat's out of the bag, how could BST ever be kept under wraps?
Like everything, there are implications and moral and ethical considerations that have to be weighed. One of the things that 15 and more generally the Labyrinth group is good at, is to consider these implications in the broader scope of the social order. 15, from an early age, always felt that the technologies of BST and LRM would only be granted to those organizations that would properly honor the ethical considerations that were required by the technology itself. This is one of the fundamental charters of the Labyrinth group, and all of its members take it very seriously. As a new technology is being developed, there are always members of the team who are concerned with the ethical implications of the technology and are responsible for usage guidelines and deployment rules. This is an integral part of any project's development.
That's good to hear, but couldn't such a charter also be used to prevent the spread of these technologies to a broader audience?
Unquestionably. A technology like BST, once developed and tested, could in time become a consumer technology. But as long as the Labyrinth group exists, it would protect BST from many and all outside forces. Within the Labyrinth group there is a committee called the Technology Transfer Program or TTP Committee. This committee has two missions: 1, to assess the incoming technologies that are assimilated from ETs, and 2, they're responsible for which technologies and in what state of dilution they are transferred to our private industry partners, NSA, or the military. The TTP Committee is in control of the pure state technologies that are developed by the Labyrinth group. These pure state technologies are virtually never transferred to outside organizations. Even those staff members in the ACO who are not part of the Labyrinth group are unaware of these pure state technologies, and when.
But if I place these interview transcripts on the internet or some media publication picks up this story, more than just the ACO staff members are going to know about this stuff. Isn't this going to screw up the Labyrinth group's cloak of secrecy?
No. The Labyrinth group is more than a secret organization. For all practical purposes, it doesn't exist. The ACO doesn't exist. No one will be able to trace the ACO, let alone the Labyrinth group. Their security technologies are so vastly superior they are completely invulnerable in this regard. Nothing I say, or you publish, will make them more vulnerable. As I said before, their only concern will be the precedent of my defection and how it could create more defections over time.
Why would anyone want to leave? I mean, I understand your case. You didn't want your memories changed or removed. But they don't commonly do that, do they?
Not often, but I'm certainly not the first to be targeted to undergo memory implant sessions or other forms of invasive security measures. They're all part of the culture of the Labyrinth group and the ACO. Everyone who enters either of those worlds understands what they must subject themselves to. It's very clear why the paranoia must be part of the culture. But over time, certain individuals find it suffocating. And these individuals are the ones who are most at risk to see my defection as a reason for their own. I may be entirely wrong about this, but I believe there are 10 to 20 individuals who would leave the ACO or even the Labyrinth group if they were given the choice without repercussions.
But I thought you said last night that these people were in love with their jobs because of the special access to technologies and research labs that were so advanced to anything else available. If that's the case, what would they do in normal society?
I'll find out. I'll be the first to experience normal society. As a normal person.
Well, at least you won't have any problem getting a job. What am I saying? You won't even need to work. I forgot, you can make your own money out of thin air.
You'd be surprised to know that I live a pretty simple life. I own a '92 Honda Accord and live in a modest 3-bedroom home in a suburban neighborhood of modest homes.
You're kidding.
No.
You make $400,000 a year tax-free and have a money tree in your mind, and you live like I do? If you don't mind my asking, what do you do with all your money?
I have blind trusts.
Are all the Labyrinth group members like you?
You mean in regard to money and possessions?
Yes.
Most live at a higher standard of living than I do, but it is part of our culture to live modestly and none of the members live a pretentious lifestyle. 15 pays people what they're worth, not because he wants them to throw money around and live flamboyantly. He's a big believer in this, and he himself, even more than I, live humbly.
I find this really hard to believe. I think of just about everything you've told me so far, this is one of the hardest things to believe. I'm totally baffled here.
I can appreciate that, but what I'm telling you is the truth. Initially, The way new people are recruited to join the ACO is largely because of the monetary incentives. These are extremely bright and capable people and could easily secure positions in academia or private industry making $200,000 per year, and more. The ACO lures them by at least doubling their salary and offering them lifetime employment contracts. But those who ultimately earn the right to enter the 12th level are then inducted into the labyrinth group, and by the time an individual has risen to this status, money has become increasingly unimportant. Particularly after the core team intelligence accelerator experience. After the LERM experience, it's diminished even more. You'd probably find it interesting that 15 lives in a small, 3-bedroom home in a regular community where the average property value is about $250,000. That's not much of a house by West Coast standards. His automobile must have at least 100,000 miles on it, no air conditioning, and he's perfectly content with his situation. New ACO recruits are always amazed at 15's thrift. I think bewildered is a better way of putting it. But over time, they learn to respect him not as an eccentric, but as an extremely dedicated genius who simply likes to live like other people and blend in.
Okay. I've got to get personal here, and I know I've totally betrayed my agenda, but you've got to tell me a few things about. Well, like, what do your neighbors think you do?
I don't know my neighbors very well. I've worked 70 hours per week since I was 18 years old. When I socialize, it's generally with my colleagues. There's very little time for establishing other relationships. But to answer your question directly, I don't know for sure what they think I do. I've only told them I'm a research scientist for the government. For most people that settles their curiosity.
But what if you met a woman and fell in love? She'd want to know what you did and how much money you made and so forth. What would you tell her?
I work for a government weather research center. I'm a research scientist in applied chaos theory and I make $85,000 per year.
So you'd lie?
It's part of the culture of the labyrinth group. We can't tell the truth, and if we did, the vast majority of people would think we were crazy. It's also why we keep to our own. We can tell the truth among ourselves.
When I first heard about the ACO and its secret mission, and that you were defecting and afraid for your life, I thought the ACO was an evil-minded, control-the-world type of organization. Then I heard about the kind of money you all made and I pictured a bunch of intellectual snobs driving bulletproof Mercedes-Benzes and living in posh mansions. And you just dismantled my image. You completely destroyed it. So why are you so afraid?
The labyrinth group, because of its connection to the ACO, is still very much connected to the secret network of organizations who control a great deal of the world's monetary and natural resource assets. This network of organizations will know about my defection the instant these materials I've given you gain any visibility in the press or on the internet. They will know of its authenticity by simply reading these 2 interviews. While there's nothing they can do to the ACO or the labyrinth group, they can make my life difficult to live. And they will most definitely try. I know all about their technologies and how they deploy them. I know the people behind these organizations and I know how they operate. I have knowledge that I've only shown you a small fraction of. And this knowledge would make certain individuals, very powerful individuals, very uncomfortable. It's extremely rare, but when high-level operatives defect, they're hunted like dogs until they're found and disposed of, or, if they serve an ongoing purpose, their memories are selectively wiped clean. It's one of the unfortunate realities of having dealt with these organizations.
But you were just a scientist. A linguist, for God's sake. How does that make you a threat to these secret organizations?
I was the one that created the underlying encryption technology for their security system that overlays their predictive modeling software for the world's stock exchanges. I may be a simple scientist in your eyes, but my talents for linguistics is not the only talent I possess. I'm also gifted in the field of encryption. And within the world of economics, I'm simply the best. And this talent was given to certain organizations to help them, and in the process of doing so, I learned about these organizations and how they operate. It makes me a security risk.
Why? I mean, if the ACO and Labyrinth Group have so much money, why work with these evil groups?
First of all, they're not evil. These organizations consist of well-educated elitists who are self-absorbed perhaps, but not evil. They look at the world as a biological experience where the strong survive, the powerful thrive, and the secretive control. They like being in control of the experience. They are the ultimate control freaks, but not for the sake of adoration or ego gratification, but for the sake that they genuinely believe they're the best at making policy decisions that affect the world's economy and security. Don't confuse control with evil intent. It's not necessarily one and the same thing. That's the game they choose to play. The fact that they make incredible sums of money is simply part of the game, but it's not the reason they sit in the driver's seat of the world's economy. They simply want to protect their life's agenda like anyone else would. It's just that they're in the position to actually do it. They get their security from being at the top of the economic food chain.
But they're manipulating people and keeping information from them. If this isn't evil, what is?
By your definition. Our national government, our local government, virtually every business and organization, is evil. Everyone manipulates and keeps information hidden. Governments, organizations, and individuals.
You're twisting my words. It's a matter of degree, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing if I don't tell you my true hair color, and it's another thing if, as part of this secret network, I withhold information about how I'm manipulating the world economy. They're entirely different in scale. You can't compare them. I still think it's evil when organizations manipulate and control things for their own gain.
Believe me, I didn't set out to be the defender of these organizations, but you need to understand this because it's important and it may affect you in the days ahead. This secret network of powerful organizations is more aligned with the goals of the Labyrinth Group than our world's governments, and, in particular, our military leaders. If you're worried about anything, you would be well advised to worry more about the administration, Congress, and the Department of Defense. Not only in the United States, but in every country.
How can you say that? Are you saying that our government and military leaders are trying to cause us harm and these secret, manipulative organizations are trying to help us?
I'm saying that the leadership in the world's community of nations is inept, and can be bought with the holy dollar. And that it's not the secret network that I've been talking about, who's manipulating our government and military leadership to invest huge amounts of money in destructive forces like nuclear and biological weapons. This, they're deciding on their own. The secret organizations that I'm pointing the finger at are opposed to these military build-ups, because they interject a degree of uncertainty in their models for controlling economic and social order. The politicians and military leaders are the ones who are investing time, energy, and money in weapons of mass destruction, and these, if there is such a thing as evil, are it.
Okay. I see your point. But you implied that these secret organizations would try to kill us if we published and distributed all of this? I still don't see how that makes them so noble.
I don't think you have to be concerned about these secret organizations. You don't know enough to be dangerous to them. Besides, they're used to journalists snooping around and trying to expose them. None have succeeded in any meaningful way. Dozens of books have been written about them. So they're not going to bother you. Their interest will be in me and me alone. It's one of the reasons why I'm careful in what I tell you. I know they'll read these transcripts, as will the NSA, CIA, ACO, and the entire Labyrinth Group. I'm allowing you to record these conversations, because I know who will hear these exact words, and I want them to know precisely what I have shared with you, and through you, to others. I'm not making a value judgment as to whether these secret organizations are noble or not. I'm merely pointing out that they're not the ones wasting huge sums of money and intellectual capital on weapons of mass destruction. They're significantly more competent to rule than our politicians and military leaders are. And this is simply my opinion.
I still don't get it. If the Labyrinth Group, the ACO and this secret network of organizations are also noble and benevolent, why are you afraid for your life? And why are they hiding from the public like cockroaches?
To answer your first question, I fear for my life because I know information that could cause irreparable harm to a variety of secret organizations. Though I have no intention to do so.
But simply because you know these things, they'll hunt you down and kill you? Sounds like a nice group to me. Certainly not evil.
Remember, they're control freaks. They don't like having anyone loose who could cause them potential harm. If I wanted to, I could bring them down. I know that much about their computer algorithms and encryption technologies.
But how would you get access to their system? It would seem to me that you'd be placing yourself in great jeopardy if you tried to get into their system.
I don't need to get into their system to cause them harm. I need to get into their system to prevent harm. They will invite me into their system.
I don't understand.
When I developed the system initially, there were certain time-delayed algorithms that were scripted to occur at specific times, and if they were not maintained accordingly, the program would essentially self-destruct. Something that these organizations cannot afford to happen.
Why did they agree to this?
It's part of the fee that the Labyrinth Group extracts from its clients. More importantly, it ensures that our technologies, even in their diluted states, are operated according to our agreement and not misused. I have the access codes for this system and the maintenance key that will prevent it from crashing. I've made certain that I'm the only one who has this knowledge.
You're telling me that with all those photographic memories running around at the Labyrinth group that you're the only one who knows the code?
I didn't exactly report the right number when I did my last update of their system. So, yes, I'm the only one who knows the correct code. I designed it that way to ensure my safety.
But with all the geniuses in the Labyrinth group, you're telling me that they can't solve this problem themselves?
Not without a significant amount of time. Which is something 15 won't agree to do. It's too wasteful and a major distraction to BST research.
Do they already know about this?
Oh, yes. I informed them shortly after I defected.
They must have been pissed.
It wasn't a pleasant conversation, to put it mildly.
I was thinking about all of this sophisticated technology that the Labyrinth group has, but I don't understand something. How do you manufacture it? I assume Intel isn't doing the manufacturing, right?
Correct. There's no one on this planet that can manufacture these technologies. They're all based upon the core team technology, which is about 150 generations ahead of our best computer technologies here on Earth. For example, the LEARM project used only one domestic technology in the total array of about 200 different technologies, and it was a relatively insignificant part of the project.
What was it?
It's a derivative of a laser telemetry technology that the ACO developed about 20 years ago. But it filled the specific needs of the LEARM project, because it was based on analog protocols, which were required for the application in that specific part of the experiment.
So the core team performs all the manufacturing of what the Labyrinth group designs. What if the core team decide for whatever reason, not to share these technologies all of a sudden? Wouldn't the Labyrinth group cease to exist?
Perhaps. But 15 is shrewd, and he's put certain contingencies in place to help ensure nothing like that would ever happen. Bear in mind that the core team are at least as motivated as we are to develop this technology, perhaps more. They have tremendous respect for 15 as well as the other human contingent of the Labyrinth group. However, when the Labyrinth group was first formed, 15 negotiated with the core team to share all source code for the projects that came out of BST research. All based technologies were replicated in 2 separate research labs. There's complete redundancy right down to the power supplies.
Won't the leaders of these secret organizations try to pressure 15 to find you? With their remote viewing technology, can't they find you easily?
The leaders of these secret organizations well know they have no leverage with 15. After they read this information, they will know they have even less leverage. 15 and the Labyrinth group designed and developed all of their security systems. Every last one. They knew they had to be indebted to the Labyrinth group for certain technologies that made them, speaking metaphorically, invisible. 15 cannot be pressured. In fact, it's just the opposite. 15 can pressure them, though he never would. To 15, these organizations simply represent the best alternative to letting our own governments take control of the economic engines and social order of the world infrastructure. Hence, he sympathizes with them and tries to help them to the extent he can afford the time and energy.
So how will you hide from them?
As I told you before, I began to systematically disentangle myself from the ACO's invasive security precautions, which include electronic sensors implanted underneath the skin in the back of the neck. I effectively stripped myself of these devices so I'd have a chance of remaining underground until a reasonable solution could be negotiated.
But you said they had RV technology that can locate you. What about this?
There's little doubt that they will try this, but it's not an exact science. An RV could see this room, but not have a clue as to how to find it. They might be able to key in on a particular object like that clock, for example, but unless it was the only clock of its kind and they could trace its location, it wouldn't help them.
Is there anything I should be worried about, then?
I think we need to move around a bit, and vary our meeting time and place. We should conduct the next interview in a new environment, perhaps outdoors. Something generic without landmarks.
So they can't read my street sign and then look at my house's address? I mean, if they were doing an RV session right now?
They would try. And it's possible they'd be successful, but not likely.
I suddenly got very nervous. You're not making me feel comfortable with this.
I can only be honest.
What would they do with me and my daughter if they found us?
I think you could assume that they'd perform an MRP of the entire experience of meeting me.
They wouldn't kill us?
I don't think so. 15 doesn't resort to violence unless it's absolutely necessary.
Shit. I wish I knew about this before I agreed to get my daughter and me involved. Just tell me one thing, do you know when they're doing an RV session? I mean, can you feel it or anything?
I can sense it, but it's not something that's absolute.
Is there any defense against it?
None.
So all we do is hope that their damn RV is incompetent?
I'll only stay for short periods of time, and it'll be late at night when they're far less likely to perform an RV session. It'd be a good practice to vary our meeting place, as I suggested before. Other than that, I don't know what more we can do.
I assume there's nothing the police or FBI could do to help.
Nothing that I'm interested in.
But what will you do to protect yourself?
As you can imagine, Sarah, there's certain information I can't share with you given the nature of these interviews. This is one instance I can't tell you more than I already have.
I'm feeling the need to bring this session to an end. My mind is quite literally filled to the brim. I think if you told me anything profound right now, it'd just go in one ear and out the other. Can we meet again on Tuesday and perhaps pick up where we left off tonight?
Yes, that's fine with my schedule.
Okay. Signing off for tonight, end of session 2.